One. Hey guys, it's the Blue Line Hockey Club. Big news today. Don Cherry was fired from Sportsnet. We thought we'd just get on and banter for 4 or 5 minutes. Huge news. All four of us grew up in upstate New York, watched Hockey Night in Canada. Don Cherry is a legend, iconic with dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
us watching hockey. So huge news for us. I don't know who's going to replace him. Here's what he said last night, or this Saturday on Hockey Night in Canada.
You people love you that come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that.
So what do you guys think of that?
Hypersensitive world we live in, right? It's a hypersensitive world. I think, Mark, I'll let Mark talk a little bit about, I think it was somewhat the way the media and stuff portrayed it, made it seem a little bit, I'm not going to say whether I have an opinion of it's terrible or not terrible, but the way the media portrayed it seemed to have tried to put it in a little bit more poor of a light than it maybe actually was intended to be, by kind of clipping it at the point of making it sound, getting the most effect, I guess it could get, basically. But Mark, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't hear it live on Saturday night. I actually just had to go back and find it on the internet and listen to it. I did read a little bit about it, but everything that I found was it started at the point where he said, "You people need to," right? And it got into it. But if you actually found the original clip, it goes back about 10 or 15 seconds earlier in the interview, and he started out and he said, "I don't even really feel like, doing this poppy anymore." He goes, "Nobody's supporting the troops in Mississauga, Toronto, the big cities. Nobody's wearing the poppy anymore." And then he got into, "You people, you love our place. You love our milk and honey, the freedoms that you have of our country. Basically, why aren't you supporting us by buying the poppy and wearing the poppy?" Right? So I guess what he was saying is, years ago, everybody bought the poppy, wore the poppy. It was a big thing, supported the troops. And now it's just like a dying thing and nobody's buying them anymore. But, his context was "you people." And when he said "you people," and then that was like,
Hair caught on fire.
yeah. So everybody was talking about, he's talking about all these immigrants that have moved to Canada that don't care about supporting the troops. They just love the life that they live in Canada. Right.
Once
So
you
that's
say
kind of where
people, it goes right to right and left. That's why they're showing that. What Derek said, that's the only part they're showing in the media, because once you say something like "you people," it goes to right and left, and then people just it's like gas. It just fucking ignites. So I don't know. And then on top of that, Mark, sorry to interrupt, but I just think the poppies are old. There's social media. You can donate other ways. Yes, the poppy is significant in Canada, especially in the hockey population. I think it's just Don Cherry. Yeah, old traditions. Don Cherry's that way, and I think Rob said something. He used to sell them. He didn't mean it. I don't think it deserves firing. I don't think you can spin it any way you want. All four of us can spin it into four different directions if we want. But I think Mark and I said something. Was this the way they wanted Don Cherry out? Well, he's 85 years old, making $1 million a year.
I think the one concern I have, and this is a microcosm of a lot of stuff going on in the society right now. The thing that scares the hell out of me is it's a slippery slope, right? If this is the kind of stuff that people are going to start getting fired for, have their lives ruined for just making a comment on television in the moment, it's terrifying. Like, I have young kids, so I think about, as they grow up, is every word and everything they say or post going to be analyzed, and then later, somebody's going to try to destroy their life because of a comment they made that could be taken out of context, whatever, it's just, I feel like it's a slippery slope when you're talking about in our country, the First Amendment, free speech, basically. So it's just, to me, it's a slippery slope, and I don't like what this basically what it kind of lays out going forward for society as a whole. It's just a kind of a scary thing to me.
Well, yes, and that's exactly where I think we find ourselves right now. Politics be damned. No matter what it is, we are hypersensitive to everything. You said this, now we've got to split. We go to our corners. And what's happening here is I personally think you're missing the overall point he was trying to make, which is we're trying to support our troops on this day, which is why we wear the poppy seeds. And, you know, the reality is we're so far removed from the people on the front lines that are defending us every day. It's something like 1% of the population in the United States specifically. It's probably not the same for Canada, and I don't know exactly what it is, but
Probably similar.
1% of our population defends us, and only 3% knows or has a family member that's in that 1% defending us. So that means 99 to 97% are disconnected from the troops that are supporting us, that allow us to go and have these conversations that we're having right now. So to me, everybody just needs to cool the fuck down and start listening to what he was trying to say, which is it's Veterans Day, and you know he's trying to.
Everyone should have a poppy. If you live in Canada, everyone should have a
Put a
poppy.
fucking poppy on. Give him $2.
Yeah.
I don't think it was about the immigrants. It seemed like it's a, you know, when you cut it up and you put it into a different context, you don't show the full rant. It changes the dynamics of the message he was trying to make. And to me, it wasn't about, you know, you bastards shouldn't be here. It was about, you know, this is how we do it on this day. And to me, it was an older guy who is seeing an older tradition fade away. And I'm sure that's got to be hard.
Yeah.
Spot on, Robbie.
I mean, if you watched the video, you'll see he's wearing like his garb for the military and supporting the military. Obviously, he feels very strongly for the cause. He was a little bit fired up the way he was saying things. And I know people that have been to Canada, Derek was just in Ottawa this week, they have had a pretty big influx of immigration over the last, you know, couple decades, right? So Don Cherry's 85 years old. When he was 60 years old doing this, there was a lot more people maybe supporting this cause for what it might be. Maybe, you know, just because it was different times, no social media, whatever it was, and that's how they supported the troops. But he's seen the decline of this, and, you know, I think he's trying to just say, look, you know, you like living here, support our troops. They're the ones that give you the freedoms to live here. And the thing with free speech, right? So free speech nowadays seems like to me that you have the right to say what you want, but if it's not what other people like, then it's not free speech, right? So
That's true.
you know, as long as you're saying things that I like, then it's cool. But if you don't say what I like, then hey, we need to censor this shit.
Well, you have freedom of speech, but I have freedom of speech about what you said, right? So it's just like Derek said, a slippery slope. But then everyone can turn it. I mean, I can say I like alcohol, and you guys can turn that into so many stories.
Well,
and that's your freedom of speech.
That's the good part about the United States is we can all have these different opinions, and at the end of the day, we're not going to be killed for having them, right? When you leave these walls, that changes. The game is completely different. You can be killed for having a different opinion, right? So assent is what's important here.
Who's going to replace him? Who do you guys think are going to replace him?
Well, I mean, they've been firing everybody that worked for him. So.
Yeah.
You don't replace him. That's my opinion. I mean, you don't replace him. I mean, he's iconic. No one is gonna. I mean, when it comes down to the suits, his personality, his banter with Ron McClain, you know, it's like you don't replace that. You go in a different direction, basically, is what I think. I mean, you don't replace him. So
I don't know the answer to this either, but you know, to me, it seems a little bit fishy, or at least something smells. Before he signed this last contract to renew it, you know, we had this conversation. You know, were they going to let him go? Who they were going to replace him with? I feel like they were just waiting for the first fucking thing to happen. Awkward for him to, you know, for them to cut and run. It's just
The over the years with Don Cherry, I mean, we've all watched Hockey Night in Canada hundreds of times, right? And I even watch the American broadcast and then switch over to the Canadian broadcast after the first to watch it, just because I want to listen to what Don Cherry has to say, because, the most of the other broadcasts now are going to these analysts that are just cut and dry, the same,
Fluffing. Yeah.
same banter, no matter who you listen to. It's a girl and a guy most of the time now. And they talk about the game, what's going on. When you get Ron MacLean and Don Cherry together, you don't know what the hell Don Cherry's going to say. And I can't believe this is the worst thing that he's ever said on air,
Yeah,
with all
there's
the
others.
crazy shit
Yeah.
that he's said over the years. And,
Hates Europeans.
he's blasted so many people on Hockey Night in Canada, especially the players themselves. He calls them out. He just tells it how it is. He calls the guys, pretty much pussies if they are, right? And
What's
go
the
ahead.
difference? Sorry, Mark. What's the difference of him ripping on European hockey players compared to what he said here? Like, I mean, flat out just tearing them apart.
Look,
Yeah.
first of all, it's different. He's giving hockey analysis in that.
Yeah, I guess you're right there.
So, he's strayed a little bit outside of hockey, which is why I think they were willing to drop the guillotine on his fucking neck.
Yeah.
Again, look, everybody just needs to chill the fuck out. Start listening to what the other person is saying. Don may not have said that articulately, but he had a point he was trying to make, and I think we zoomed right past his point, which was, on this fucking day, we wear the poppies. That's how we as Canadians, and I'm not a Canadian, I'm an outsider looking in, but it seems to me that we're making I'm happy to sit down and have this conversation, but we're making way more out of this than I think. We've got bigger problems to be talking about here.
Agreed. Yeah.
What about
I think don't you think you're going to see I think you're going to see that, my personal opinion, I think you see that network's ratings just tank completely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
I
telling
hope
you right now.
so. I hope
Yeah.
so. Yep.
There's a lot of pissed off Canadians right now. I mean, I was on social media before we came on for 5 minutes, and every fourth, fifth post was about Don Cherry. That anything hockey related, anybody that's in hockey is sharing this or posting about this. It's obviously the biggest news in Canadian hockey in a long time. But when you say "you people," I mean, I could take it in another direction and say, well, is he referring to all the fucking millennials now that could give a shit about supporting the
There you
troop?
go.
Like, are you talking about that group of people, the younger generation? Because obviously the older generation used to support the poppy. They used to wear the poppy. Now no one's wearing it, right? So is it immigrants or is it the younger generation that doesn't give a shit to support? They just want the fruits of the country, right? So you could debate it either way. Who was he talking about, right? Because there's younger generation obviously is a lot different than it was, 10, 20 years ago, where they're just more about what they're doing, selfish, video games, Fortnite, whatever
That's a good point, Mark. That's a good point. And I don't think, I think maybe what they should have done is maybe Don probably told them to go piss on themselves when they offered him to maybe clarify himself. But
he came out and he doubled down. And
did he?
He didn't apologize. Everybody else apologized for him. Ron MacLean made a statement. TSN made a statement.
I still would
Don
take
said,
a bet with them sending Ron MacLean out to, try and clean this shit up. First of all, it's not in any way Ron MacLean's responsibility to fact check Don Cherry or try and check him in a word soup salad because he wanted to express his opinion. He had an honest moment. Give him a fucking chance to have an honest moment. Again, I don't think that he was, saying not to come. You're ungrateful for being here. I think he was, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. And from what I heard, my interpretation was, we are not supporting our troops. And to me, that's a problem all around the globe. I know it's a problem here as well. So I at least respect that message.
The world's definitely forgotten a great deal about what happened on 9/11 for sure. We've gone a long way from what happened from those days for sure. So
yeah, listen, we've been told to go about our business for 18, 19 years now. Are we at war or are we going about our business? I can't do.
What I mean though is that, the way that everybody was bonded together, how we
Right.
supported law enforcement, supported the troops, supported our firefighters, now, I mean, everybody's kind of just pushed to the side, and in the words of Robbie Pete, I got mine, so it's how the world is, it seems. I mean, we've forgotten, what can fracture us. We've totally lost, we're more interested in what fractures us than what brings us together at this point. And it's a kind of a sad time, honestly, but hopefully things change.
How many people watched the broadcast and didn't even think anything of it, right? Until it got
Yeah,
blown up
right.
by the media. I mean, Ron McClain said it himself, I'm sorry, I didn't even catch it when we were doing the show. Like, he didn't catch it. He didn't notice it. He was sitting right there, even though he spun Don Cherry's bullshit for years, trying to keep his crazy comments down, spin his comments during the show. And, then Don cuts him off. But, it is what it is. Some people wouldn't even have picked up on this if the media didn't blow it up.
No,
Yeah.
and Ron, I
And
think he said it wasn't until they got like a bunch of phone calls that overwhelmed Sportsnet, and that's what forced the hand. So,
well, Ron looked pretty. If you watch it live, Ron was like putting his head down. You see his face like, holy shit. But
well, yeah, I saw
I mean,
it.
I came on to banter the topic that I thought I think he should have got fired, but with all of us talking, I could easily go the other way. But I think, all four of us know on this podcast, and this is just my view. I think we know what he meant as an 85-year-old older guy supporting the veterans. To me, anyways, and I shouldn't say you four or other three, but myself, I think I know what he meant, and I think that's why they fired him. Mark had a great point. Yeah, he could have been talking about the millennials, but if you had to bet the farm on it, what would you bet? So
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, he's 85 years old. So if you've talked to any of your grandparents, are they PC? No, they're not PC. They're fucking old, right? They're not used to, political correctness bullshit, right? They speak their mind. If they feel a certain way, they say it, and they don't give a shit what people think about it because
yeah,
that's the way they grew up. There wasn't this political correct culture. And when you
exactly.
get to a certain age in life, you don't give a fuck what people think about what you say. You just say it and you move on
Yeah.
because that's what old people do. I mean, everybody knows somebody that's old as shit
You
and
fart
just
and
like,
you just keep walking.
yeah, you just have the walking farts and you get through life. There's no
Yeah.
big deal. Like, that's what they do. They say shit they shouldn't. And that's what, that kind of mentality is like, that's what I know. I'm old. I'm not changing my ways. I'm stuck in what I do. So that's part of it too. He's 85 years old. He's probably only got a couple more years left before he
Yeah.
can't wipe his ass. So, maybe
Yeah.
this is the way to get him out, like you
I
said,
think
Pat.
Rob was on point though. I think all of this aside, like this was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? This is what caused his firing. But I think it's probably they were trying to look for a way to
Yeah.
get a legend that wasn't really wanting to relinquish the controls, let go of the reins of his existence in the media world. They were probably looking for a way to get him out the door, and this was like something they were like, yes, it's in this PC culture, seems massive, but I think what happened was they saw it and they were like, this is it. Let's
But
jump on it. So
what Sportsnet did is they made a business calculation,
yeah,
and that business calculation is being applied across the board right now.
yep,
It's no longer okay to segregate a certain class. They're trying to be PC to everybody, so that if you want to spend money with me, we'll take it. And what they did was made the calculation that what Don Cherry just said is going to somehow separate some of the advertising dollars, some of potential, revenue streams. So to me, this was purely financial. It was purely business. And I have a hunch that they were, looking to make that cut anyways. So it's just the way things are going. But like I'll say it one last time, everybody just needs to chill out and try and listen to the message
breathe.
instead of running back to corners like little squirts.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
How
And
many,
then
How many times has he ever said a racial thing on air? Does anybody know? Like, has there ever been? He's been on air for as long as I can remember.
If that's
Right?
what it was. If that's what it was.
Yeah, if that's what it was, like, do you give the guy the benefit of the doubt? Like, he's never said anything like this in 45 years. You know, we'll
He's had to
apologize.
say
and
some
move on.
bad stuff about Europeans.
If
Well, yeah,
I
I mean,
were to make a guesstimation of what's going to happen, like we just said it, we've been watching Coach's Corner for 30 plus years.
40
That's
years. Derek's
plus.
43.
Well,
Just turned
okay.
50.
But my point is Sportsnet is going to lose an entire generation that watch that. We're not going to watch the next kids because it's not the same. They're going to have to train the kids to watch these new kids, and he's going to be the next Don Cherry. But they are going to lose all of that backwash that turned on, like Mark said. We watch the American game, and then you're flipping over to the Canadian station to catch Don Cherry's commentary in the middle because the Americans don't have shit to say, and neither do these cookie cutter, broadcasters that are in the booths now. They don't have shit to say about the game.
I think when you're a big hockey player, you want to get your picture with the Stanley Cup, Wayne Gretzky, and Don Cherry.
And grapes.
So
I think the way you can tie this up, man, is it was a polarizing day in the hockey world, and I'll be interested to see how the country of Canada reacts as far as how they will treat that network that made this decision. I think it's going to be interesting going forward to see where the ratings go of that. It'll speak a lot to how they perceive this. So
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if you're TSN, do you hire Don Cherry to do Hockey Night in Canada?
Well, you got to let it all quiet down. You got to let it all quiet down for a little while. So
yeah, I know, but if I was the president, I would just hire Don Cherry and put him right on Saturday night and say "fuck you."
Hey, it's a possibility, but
the people in Canada are pissed about this. I mean, they're not happy that Don Cherry's getting fired over this. You got to understand, there's a lot of Canada's a fairly liberal country, but if you go on social media, there's a lot of people in support of Don Cherry, and we stand behind Don is the one that I see going around the most. Is we stand with Don. I don't think it's going to do shit. The guy's fired, but I mean, I think there's a lot of support just to show that they're standing by him. They, almost thanking him for his years of what he's done for them. And like I said, if you listen to Don Cherry, you'd never know what he's going to say. You never know what he's going to talk about in between periods. It's more than likely not the game that you're even watching, but it's about some other bullshit that he's seen during the week, or he's ripping on some player, or he's really giving some young kid some props that he's seen play. He's always supported. When you listen to Don, he always supports the local programs, the junior programs. You'd see him talk about, like in Brampton and all the other junior programs that you don't hear on any other really sports broadcasts, where they talk about the young kids coming up, and he talks about kids that are playing well, that are coming up to the NHL. He gives them a shout out on the show. I mean, he was different. He definitely gave you a different perspective in between periods, and I don't know anybody that can fill those shoes, to be honest.
Coach's Corner is Coach's Corner because of Don Cherry. Coach's Corner is what it is because Graves was a respected player. I mean, he was only in the AHL. I don't think he played a lot in the NHL if he ever did. But he knows a lot about hockey, and in it forever.
Coach the Bruin.
Coach's Corner is Coach's Corner because of Don Cherry. Not because of Ron McLean, not because it's going to be Brian Burke or whoever takes this over for him.
Doug McLean.
Super unique personality, guys. You're not going to replace him. I mean, you're not. I mean, you'll never see. I don't think you'll ever see anybody like him, really. Again, honestly,
Nope.
especially with the world we're living in now. You're not going to see somebody like him ever again. I don't think.
They made a tough calculation. I'll be curious if Sportsnet feels like in a few years they made the right choice or not, because I feel it down on my toes that with Cherry gone, he's just lost a whole lot of years.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. Let's see how it plays out.
People will watch, who steps in, but I'll tell you, it won't be. I don't think it's going to be a pattern.
I think it's going to be a cold reception. Yeah.
That's the Blue Line Hockey Show update on Don Cherry getting fired 11/11/2019.
Oh, doctor.
Yeah.
Hey,
Big one.
We knows. I don't want to be the person that fills in his shoes afterwards.
Steve Dubinsky coming up this Wednesday, podcast 81.
Keep your head up.